and welcome to FERRI Unfiltered. I'm well chuffed. I have an amazing guest today, and it is Jack Kavanagh. How are you, mate?
Oh, I am delighted to be here, man. I'm excited about this.
Oh, so am I, mate. We nearly kicked in early as well. We hadn't even hit record. It was like one of the...
We were having a great old chinwag, and then we said we had that moment where it's like, hold on, this would be good content.
This is extremely good content. Where are we going?
This is what the people want.
I know we'd end up just like that. We need to repeat it. We need to repeat it all. No, I'm so chuffed and honoured to get you on. I'm delighted, and like I just like obviously I'd heard you speak during lockdown for one of the first times, and I just sat there and I was eating my dinner and I was just like, this guy's good. This guy's really good. And then obviously I understand you've got your podcast, which now I listen to, which is great as well. So obviously podcast, like go and punt your podcasts, give the people the name of it, tell them where they can find it.
So the podcast is called The Only Human Podcast. But we can get into all of that
Right.
a little bit down the line.
So obviously, why don't you tell everybody, I know what you do, why don't you start telling everybody what you do, and let's dive into it.
Yeah, it's funny because I've spent the last week taking a step back and trying to really understand, well, what is it that I do and who am I? And so I suppose the easy way of starting is I take a three-pronged approach.
Right.
First and foremost, I'm a human being. So I wear a number of hats. So I'm a brother, a son, a partner, business owner. I'm a friend, all of the things that so many of us wear. The second thing is that I'm a coach. So I suppose I meet people where they are. I hear their story. I feel their pain because inevitably people are struggling with things, you know. But then I also see their potential and I work with people to unleash that. And the third hat that I wear is that I'm a healthcare professional. So I actually trained as a pharmacist. I was always interested in health and well-being, and the intersection between science and health, and that led me to study pharmacy. I became a little bit disillusioned with it though, because I realized that the healthcare system is actually a sick care system to a greater or lesser degree. And I wanted to be on the right side of it. And so for me, I recognized that health is not just physical. It is also mental and emotional, and it is spiritual as well. And by spiritual, I really mean values and purpose. Having an awareness of the values that we live our lives by, and by the things that bring us a sense of purpose or bring us alive in our life. And so these are the kind of things that I combine in my work. And I do that in a number of ways. I do one-to-one coaching, I do the podcast, I do live seminars and talks. And born out of COVID, we've developed the Rise Academy as well, which is resilience, inner strength, and energy. And that is a cool little side project that is becoming a bigger thing as people go through this program. So that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Nice. This is it. Like, look, I'm like a fish with its hook in its mouth. I'm like, right, tell me more now. Tell me more. No, it's brilliant. And like with that talk, I mean, it was really good. I mean, how did you like starting into that? Like, was that something like you say you've done your coaching side? Was that something that built from there, like to go, do you know what, let's go into like did you do one-to-one and then build into like a bigger audience? Is that how it started?
Yeah, so I suppose to give people a little bit of context about me and my story, as to how I even got to that place of considering coaching.
Right.
Because like so many people, like I was that kid when I was younger that was just like up and going from the time I woke up in the morning, and I was like looking for any way to burn my energy, involved in all kinds of sports. But I was probably written off as a problem child by a lot of my teachers in the early years, and they had good reason to do that. Like on one of the first days I was in primary school, my mum got a phone call, and the teacher went on to tell her that I had jocked one of the girls in the yard that day. So, but what they realized was like I was really badly dyslexic, and so I was like misdirecting my energy everywhere, trying to, I suppose, divert from this wanting to be found out that I didn't understand. And over time, like I learned, I got some assistance and I learned how to learn. Um, and that was really cool for me because at that time, it was a time when Harry Potter became a thing.
Yeah.
And this might sound like a roundabout way of answering your question, but it'll all make sense in a minute. Um, so Harry Potter became a thing, and I literally went from a position where my dad was reading me the books because I couldn't read them, to me getting the assistance that I needed, learning how to learn, and me being able to read the books. And I remember like it was like such a marked difference in the space of like a year or two. And I really became an avid learner then, and I kind of joked that like that was the first time that I entered the world of magic. Um,
I like
but
it.
like now, I suppose one of the things that I see in people is their magic, which is the potential that everyone has, you know. And just like me back then, like I was a little bit stuck. I didn't know how to explore that. But with some of the right guidance, I got there. And it's similar in the work that you do. You know, you develop potential in people. Um, and so I entered this world of magic, and that was like around the time I was choosing what school to go to for my secondary education. And my dad had gone to a boarding school, so we said, let's look at some of those. And I remember driving down in the gate of a school in the Midlands in Ireland and seeing this old building that looked like a castle. And I was like, deal done. Easiest decision of my life. I'm going to Hogwarts.
I'm
And
becoming a real wizard.
yeah. Leaving the Muggle world. And so I spent like 4 years or 6 years in a boarding school with about 400 guys. And it was like full-time boarding, and we would get out for a break on midterms and so on. And my love of sport really continued there. So running was like my headspace. It was my solo pursuit. It was the place where I learned what it meant to challenge myself as an individual. Rugby was my team pursuit, and I played out half. So I generally found my way into leadership roles within teams. And I think like team sports can teach you amazing things about teamwork and how you operate within a team. But solo pursuits are so important as well.
Totally agree with you.
Um, because they give you a whole different skill set in terms of developing the way in which you, I suppose, learn to test your own limits. And you realize that you're the only one that decides how hard you can go. And it's that voice inside your head that dictates that, you know. And you learn to trust yourself more and more. And importantly, to learn how and when to rest and so on. But my ultimate passion during those years became windsurfing. I was a
Really?
water sports fanatic, and I trained as a lifeguard and as a surfing and windsurfing instructor. And I would spend my summers down on the beach instructing young people how to surf and windsurf and working as a lifeguard.
I'd
And
love
it's
to
like,
learn to surf.
oh yeah,
Oh, I'm terrible. See, my feet can't touch the bottom of the water. That's me. No interested.
done, done. Huh? Put me back on the ground with
I
some
just,
weights to hold. I don't,
where's my water wings? No, so you were a lifeguard then as well.
Yeah, and so these were all kind of things that really drove me. And but like it's during those years you're like being a teenager, you know, and you're like pushing out against the limits of your comfort zone, and like your comfort zone and your parents' comfort zone and your teachers and mentors, and like it's a time when you like question everything. So like I questioned my body image, I questioned how I fit in with the group, I questioned if that even mattered, I questioned like the spiritual or religion that I was brought up in, you know. And you start challenging everything. And there was times when I was really badly bullied. There was times when, if I'm honest, like it was me being the bully. And like, these are years that really shape us. And before we hit record, I was saying like that academically, I actually went from being like this kid that was distracting everybody to really enjoying and valuing the learning process, and sort of understanding that life rewards effort. And that was the first place that I really saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And I became quite a diligent guy, actually. And I realized that my interest lay in the intersection between health and people. Um, and I loved the connection with people, but I also was kind of like big into science. And so I headed off to college and studied pharmacy. And two dramatic things happened in my first year of college after being in boarding school for 6 years. The first thing was that I, for the first time, was in control of when the lights went out, and they didn't go out too often.
Right. Nice.
So that was a good part of the year. The second thing was that for the first time, I was properly introduced to the whole other race or sex on this earth, which was females.
Yeah.
And so that was a big learning curve for me that year, but it was great. And I got through my exams at the end of the year and headed down to the west of Ireland, to this place called Belmullet. And it's way out on the west coast. And kind of the only reason that you have to go down there is if you're an adventure sport junkie like I was, or if you're like collecting a shipment of drugs off the coast. It's like it's your far out. And so I worked down there instructing surfing, windsurfing, and working as a lifeguard in an adventure sports camp for young people. And that was me at my happy place. Like, people find their tribe in different places, and that's really where I found mine. And I remember cycling off to the beach on one of the first days that summer, and it's one of those like scenes that's just etched in my memory where, as I look back down the beach, I was sitting on the beach, and as I look back down the beach, the only footprints in the sand are my own, and the sun is gently setting over the waves, and I just caught myself smiling. And I think everyone can remember a time when they just catch themselves. And I just realized that for the first time I could remember that I was really comfortable with myself, and that I was kind of proud of the work that I'd put in over the years to get where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited about where I was going. Um, and that I was comfortable with the people that I was surrounded by. And I was really like looking forward to spending a summer doing the things that I love, you know. And all of those things came through that summer. And then at the end of the summer, I went away on holidays for a week with 7 of my best friends from college and school. And on the first day in Portugal that year, I ran down the beach like I'd done every day that summer, and I dived into the water, not realizing how shallow it was, and my head collided with the sandbank, and I broke my neck. And you know, like, in that moment, I was lying face down in the water, and in some ways everything changes, and in some ways nothing changes at all, and time kind of slowed down a little bit. And like, I was completely aware of what had just happened. You know, I was trained for a scenario like that,
Okay.
to manage it with someone else, but it was a bit surreal when you find yourself in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, like, life just becomes very simple, and you think about things like the people you care about. And I thought about my mum and my dad and my 2 sisters, thought about my girlfriend at the time, and like, we had a dinner planned that I was looking forward to when we got back. Thought about the guys on the beach, and I wondered, would they get to me before I ran out of oxygen? And like, if they didn't, how would they live with that? And you wonder about all these things. And then luckily Stephen put his hand in under my chest, and I was taken out of the water. And I remember waking up the following morning, and I gradually became aware of my surroundings. And like, I had a tube going down my throat to keep me breathing, another one down my nose to keep me hydrated and fed. My head was in a metal cage that made me look like Frankenstein. And I was strapped to the bed. And Next thing I see one of my best mates, Gareth, walking around the bottom of the bed, and I'm greeted by this like smiling but tear-filled face, and he just couldn't speak, and I literally couldn't speak. So
Whoa.
I mouthed the words, "It's going to be okay," and that was like really the beginning of the journey back. And like over, we can get into that, of course, but like over the
Mm-hmm.
years afterwards, I went back and completed my studies and so on. But I recognized like that in my own pursuit of understanding how to put my life back together and how do I have a mark in the world and how do I do work that is both meaningful and impactful and resonates with me, and how do I first of all though um answer this and come to terms with what has happened. And I found myself looking to psychology, and I found myself looking to a lot of material on like mindfulness and a lot of stuff around positive psychology and holistic well-being and sort of integrative lifestyle approaches and all of these kind of things. And I just came to realize that like health is so much more than our physical well-being. It is the connections that we have in our lives with people. It's the sense of purpose that we feel in the things that we do, which brings meaning into our lives. Like how we do and why we do the things we do is what brings meaning and purpose to our lives. I looked at sort of our emotional regulation, which is really about the relationships with others, um, and this kind of stuff just fascinated me. You know, like there's certain people that buoy your energy up and there's certain people that pull you down, and why is that? And I looked at our energy management physically and like what are the things that help us perform and recover, and how do we be more resilient and bounce back when we face upset and stress and all these kind of things. And over the years I explored pharmacy, yes, and I did a master's in health and went on to study coaching and so on. And the more I learn, the more keen I am to share that with people, because I just think there's so many fundamental skills for life that we don't learn, and we have innate knowledge within ourselves. And mindfulness, like my experience of mindfulness in my own life and of breath work and things like this, has just allowed me to slow down that little bit and quieten the monkey mind that we all have,
Yeah.
and to hear a little bit more of the signal in the noise, or to listen to that voice that we all have inside and what it's actually trying to say, rather than than listening to the inner critic all the time, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm sitting here going, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. I mean, that's exactly like you say, like just that whole slowing down a bit, and like your inner chimp, like they say in the chimp paradox, like it's your inner chimp that's just wanting, like when you something happens, it's that inner chimp that's getting released. And I completely agree with you, and it's slowing everything down, actually looking at things and breaking things down a wee bit more. And the mindfulness, when you mentioned the breath, like sometimes I'll do that, like if I'm feeling really hit, it's just that big coming right from my lungs and breathing out and just going, right, okay, right, actually think rationally here, right, slow everything down. And or looking at other people's, like, why are they acting like that? They're obviously acting like that for a reason. They're not just
Yeah.
attacking you. There's going to be something behind that. So no,
Mm.
it's really interesting. So you done that. So it's like, is that what you do there? Like, are you, when you're working with people, you see people's potential? Like, I see that in the gym a lot. I'll see somebody and I'll be like, oh, they are, what a lifter they are. But it's like trying to get them to realise the potential in themselves, or the potential that they can drop that body fat. I know they can do it, but it's like try to get them to believe in themselves. Like, how are you with that with people? Do you find that we talk about obviously energy, people give you energy and take it away. Like, I call them energy vampires. So like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
people, you'll come in your gym, you're like, you're a total energy vampire. Do you know what I mean? But at the same point, they're obviously dealing with their own issues. So how do you deal with that? Like, you don't want them to be taking away all your energy. Do you ever feel like that sometimes, that you're getting drained?
Yeah, so there's two questions there. The first one is around, I suppose, nurturing the or the potential in people, and as you rightly said, it's how do you help people to see it within themselves, and quite often it comes back to that inner critic. We're wired for safety. We're wired, that negativity bias is so strong within us, because evolutionarily that kept us safe back in the day when we were roaming the savannah as cavemen and women. But like, that negativity bias doesn't serve us just as well anymore. It takes away, from us recognizing actually some of the balance in things. So we tend to focus more so on the negative. If you get 9 good compliments and 1 negative compliment, it's the negative compliment or negative comment even, that you go away with, and that negativity bias is something that's really strong. And so that gentle nurturing of reminding people of their potential and showing them evidence of that in the work that they do and how they're showing up and all of these kind of things are just basic ways that you can do it. But one really powerful way of actually flipping that switch within ourselves is practicing gratitude. And that's something that's so overlooked, and it's talked about in kind of a bullshit way so much, like, oh, just be grateful. Okay, like, a load of good that's going to do me. But when you actually understand some of the science behind it, it's really interesting, because when you actively practice gratitude in a genuine way, where you sit down a couple of times a week for a couple of minutes and just say, all right, if I'm like really honest with myself, what do I have to be grateful about? Like, the list is often just as long as the list of things that could be wrong. And that, the more I realize the thing to be grateful for, simplest things. And like, it could have been like a cup of coffee in the sunshine. It could have been the fact that I woke up in a warm house and had the opportunity to get in a cold shower.
Got you back, mate. Got you back.
Yeah, so it's inevitably it comes back to some of the simplest things. And what we realize is, first of all, we don't need as much as society would tell us to be content human beings, but also that there's far more right in our lives than maybe we gave ourselves credit for initially. And when you start to see some of that stuff within your own life, you start to see more balance. And when you do that, you can start to actually appreciate yourself a little bit more as well, for all the good things that you do and the way that you do show up and the skills that you do have and the evidence that you have of all of those things in your life. And when you can start showing people that evidence, that's when they start to believe differently. A couple of minutes ago, before we started, you said you were looking at what I was doing and saying, oh, I'd love to do that one day. You're doing it,
Well, yeah. I suppose I never really look at it like that. Like, it's just like you say with the gratitude thing. That's something like I keep telling myself that I need to do. And when I came out of hospital, that's the woman that was helping me come back and like helping me like not find myself again, but try to be, I don't know, not as down as I was. And that was the thing she mentioned, was the gratitude. And of like David Hamilton, he's another one that's excellent. He talks about gratitude a lot. And I'm like, I need to do this more. I need to do that. But then the other day I was having like I felt like I was having like no the best. I felt like I had a couple of blows on Friday, like a couple of things. I was like, oh God. And see that way you feel like you're going down. But then on the Saturday, like you say, gratitude, it was my wee girl's first birthday. And I just sat there and I was like, I've got this beautiful wee girl. I've got my other beautiful wee girl in that trap. She was in a bouncy castle, loving life. I had all my friends around me. I had a beautiful wife. I had a nice house. And I was like, and I did it like you say, like I suppose subconsciously I was doing that whole gratitude because I stood there on the Saturday afternoon and I sat when they were blowing up the bouncy castle earlier on with my youngest and my oldest daughter just in my knee. And I was like, I'm a jammy bastard. I'm actually doing really well here. Like I'm a very lucky man. And that, so I suppose subconsciously I was doing it. It pulled me up. Like from a Friday, I was like, meh, to a Saturday going, oh, do you know what, actually, I'm actually doing all right. You know what I mean? So I need to do it more. Gratitude's something like you say, it's underrated and it needs to be more.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, like, imagine if you were able to give yourself that on a tough day, you know, that's a day when things were like noticeably good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, things are noticeably good on Saturday.
Aye.
But imagine if on Friday morning you had been able to say, well, I woke up in a warm house, my family is healthy, I'm healthy, I'm able to provide a livelihood for myself, I'm able to provide for my kids, I'm gonna like go online now and be able to work with amazing clients. You know, all of these things like are massive wins in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we can like look at those and sort of count them, it gives us more flexibility, agility when you do have those knocks, because you recognize when you're aware of it that actually I'm probably in every moment or every day or every month or every year, there's probably as much support there as there is challenge.
It's very true. Very true.
And
It's
so there's more balance. Like nature is balanced, and nature is balanced and it's primed to grow. And when we see that we're both challenged and supported in different parts of our lives, both of those things help us to grow. And if we had one without the other, it would be totally askew ways. The other thing you asked me about was about the breath work and stuff. And do you know what? I just find I am, without doing some of these basic practices, like I'm a crazy fool. Um, you know, like I'm distracted, I'm irritable, I'm all of the things that I don't want to be. I'm short with people if I'm not doing some of these practices for a couple of days. Oh, what's happening there? Someone getting a call?
no, not me, you. Is somebody trying to jump into our podcast? Is this what's happening here?
What is going on?
It's
Okay.
not me. Not me.
Yeah, I can't see a call coming through either. Anyway,
I know what is happening here. There's something.
can you hear that?
I can hear it. I'm actually looking at my phone and I'm like, where is that? There it is. That. There we go. Mate, that is the universe calling. That's what it was. That's
This is a test. Oh, it's gone. But the with some of the breath work and meditation, like in the mornings, if I give myself like 5 to 10 minutes to do a bit of breath work, it centers me. It just like, these are basic things that I include in my day and they don't need to take long, but like it completely centers me and it allows me to see a bit more of the balance and be a bit more objective, and allows me to maybe set the intention of, all right, like today I want to go in and I want to be courageous in what I do today, and like to set a theme for the day or whatever it is. And it's just that moment. And like meditation can be a bit elusive for people, and the breath work is far easier to get an immediate result in terms of feeling present and centered. And you mentioned about like, oh, if I'm having a stressful day, I take a deep breath, or if I'm having a conflict with someone, I take a deep breath. And there's actually like a lot of science to that. So when you take a deep breath, and if you hold that deep breath and then exhale slowly, the long exhale it stimulates your vagus nerve.
okay.
And your vagus nerve is the nerve that connects your brain and your gut, basically. and it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So that part of your nervous system is the part that controls rest and digest. So it's the part that chills us out. It's literally like giving yourself a chill pill. And even if you think about the end of a long day, you finish work and you walk out the door and you just do that big sigh, like, it's over, you know, like, or you know, oh, don't have to see another client for 12 hours. No, you know, but it's like if you've had a stressful day and you do that long sigh, or you've had like a nice meal out with a family and at the end of it you lean back in your chair and you do that big sigh, like that is literally your body actively triggering, I can relax now, this is chill out time. And that deep inhale with a long sigh out, or a long out breath, that is genuinely like giving yourself permission to relax. And you can give yourself that at any point during the day. And a couple of those deep breaths is really cool. And I was reading the other day, like the optimal sort of breathing pattern to get into that kind of rest and digest and chill out mode is about 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. And so it's that slightly, yeah. And it's like, this stuff does not need to be complicated at all. But one of the really cool things is, and I'm not religious, but if you observe people in like religious ceremony,
You're back in the room. You dropped a bomb. You just dropped it there. You went religion, and then you just cut off. And I'm like, oh, what is he doing here?
What's going to happen?
He's keeping them in their toes there. So you were saying, was it chanting in that you were saying there? What was that?
Yeah, so like when people are chanting, or for example, like saying the rosary and things like that, the like the research shows that naturally they fall into, after a couple of minutes, that 5 second inhale, 5 second outhale, which is really interesting. People go into the zone, whatever, and you know, and they go into that like group flow. So there's like a lot of science behind this shit, and it's like really simple. It doesn't have to be effective, or it doesn't have to be complex to be effective. People are looking for like complicated answers for a complicated world, whereas the hardest thing to do is put simplicity in a complicated world, and to get rid of some of that noise on the outside. And so these are some of the basic practices that I help people implement. But a lot of the work that I do is actually really helping people to create space for themselves and to get back in touch, so that they can build when they feel disillusioned or disconnected, or like they're wearing masks in their lives, that they can get back in touch with the things that are most important and set themselves up for like true well-being and true resilience, and to really feel like they're living their lives on purpose and with intentionality and these kind of things, and with sort of a confidence that is coming from the inside and not external validation and so on.
You know, you see, you've got my wee cogs in my head are turning here, because it's, see what you were saying there, like people looking for like complex things. That's what it's the same when you take it from that way you're saying into like the gym environment, and people look for really complex, like, I'll need to go on this crazy wacky diet to help me get the result, and you're like, no, you don't. You just need to, and you're trying to say to them like, move more, eat a bit less. Like you're trying to like, oh no. If I take these pills and this drink, this makes me lose weight. No, it'll probably make you shit yourself. But like, it doesn't make you do that. And but then the same with lifting, they'll be like, I need to do this crazy workout that this guy did. And you're like, okay, well, he's clearly in gear. And plus, he's had years and years of training. He didn't turn like that overnight. And it's like, you're trying to say, no, you need to start here. And it's like you say, like stripping it back and keeping it nice and simple can be more effective, and instead of chasing crazy things.
Absolutely. And even if you look at like what you provide, say within a gym environment for people, you provide human connection, you provide physical movement, you provide that community element, and you're gently nurturing people along the way, and you're providing people with ritual, um, and those kind of things. Like, they sound so simple, but we crave so much for them in our lives, and when we don't have them, we go batshit crazy. Like, the stuff that people do, they get disillusioned, they feel like they're stuck, they lose um uh any sense of reason in relationships or their thinking. um the hardest thing to do is to do the simple things right,
Mm-hmm.
because there's
It's
so much noise.
This is it, and this is like we were saying earlier on. It was like you can't with people during like the whole COVID situation. They're responding in ways that they maybe wouldn't normally, and that's why, like we were talking earlier, like the social connection. That's like a massive thing for people. When we took our classes back outside, just to see the look in people's faces, is seeing people not through the computer. They were like, oh, it was like amazing, and that's what I love about this, and that's what I love about doing the podcast, is talking to people like yourself and hearing like your version of things, because it's great to like hear like you've said, keeping things nice and simple and finding people's true potential. Like, I love it, mate. I do. It's brilliant.
You know, I have absolute compassion as well for people that reacted in ways that they couldn't have anticipated during this time. You know, there's no right way to react in a pandemic.
No, I've never been in one of this. Is my first one. This is
You know, like, what one of us ever got the training for this?
Exactly. This is it. It's like this is a curveball. I mean, it's that nobody knows. You can tell the government don't really know what to do with it either. So it's like one of them. You can see what they're doing at the moment. It's just it's very, very different. It's a very weird
Absolutely.
situation. Oh, you're back. I thought I'd lost you again.
No, don't worry. I always come back. Like a bad smell.
No, not at all. Not at all, mate. Not at all. So you obviously did. Like, we were talking with that talk. Like, how do you feel going up and talking in front of like an audience? Like, that's the thing. Like, obviously, when I heard you were speaking, it was very, very busy on that. It wasn't Zoom. It was through Eventbrite. Like, how do you feel going up on the stage? Like, do you still get nervous? Do you feeling a bit more relaxed? Do you do your breathing techniques? Like,
Yeah, no, like, quite literally, I do the breathing techniques before I start. Like, the podcast is called Only Human, and that's literally it. Like, I am just as human as anybody else, and so are all the people that people look up to and that I looked up to in the past. And the more I got to know some of the people that I admired, I recognized that these are imperfect people. I had this image of perfection in my mind, but like, it's their imperfection that actually makes them remarkable, and so on. And they feel the fear, I feel the fear. We feel stuck at times, we feel uncertain, and I feel all of those things. And like, getting up on stage is always a bit nerve-wracking, but I've learned some ways of flipping a switch in my mind. You know, I started small. I didn't start with the number that you saw on on that call. I started small, but a really interesting switch that got flipped in my mind was by a speaking coach that I got to know, called Jerry Duffy, and he said, "You're thinking about yourself going up on stage, but when you get stuck in your own head, you're gonna feel all that fear, and it's a far harder place to be, rather than thinking of what would everybody miss out on if I didn't get up and share? And it's a complete flip of the situation. And think about all the like value that they would miss out on if I didn't get up and share. And I always say to audiences when they ask me, or individuals when they ask me about this kind of thing, do you not feel very vulnerable sharing in the way that you do? And I would say, well, what do you see when you see me sharing like this? Mm-hmm. And they would say, well, I see bravery, and I see courage, and I see a powerful young man, and all of these kind of things. And so often we think that when we share our vulnerabilities, which are the very things that make us human beings, we see that as a point at which we're fallible, or that we'll be cut down. But so often when we do that, that's where people come in and lift us up. That's where people see the courage and the power. And it's when somebody shares the vulnerable piece and actually says, like we have such a tendency in here in Ireland, oh, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, things are great. Oh, everything's fine. And it's the day that someone actually stops and says, you know what? I'm having a really rough day. Mm-hmm. That's the day when you're like, that stops you in your tracks, that makes you pause. That's the moment that allows somebody into your world to connect. Mm-hmm. And at any point in your life when you feel that you've really connected with someone, the fastest way in is through shared vulnerability. And that's some of the most powerful moments you'll have in your life. Just think about the first time that you told your wife, for example, how much you care about her, mm-hmm. and put yourself out on a ledge that you felt like this is a moment where everything could go to shit. Yep. or it could be great, and it's in a moment like that there's so much potential for good to come from, and it can be some of the most powerful times. And it's the same when I'm on stage. I know that by me stepping up and doing that, as hard as it sometimes is, that I'm giving somebody else permission to step into their own story. I'm giving someone else permission to honor themselves. I'm giving someone else permission to open the door and be vulnerable, and actually to experience the power and the catharsis that can come from that. And that's powerful.
No, definitely, and you're completely right. And like you say, the whole vulnerable side, and not wanting anybody to see that. That's how like I felt when I'd met my nurse. It's actually quite weird we're talking about this today, because I had to get a phone call from my nurse about my checkup and stuff, and that was my nurse Eleanor, just retired, just when I was finishing up, and that was one thing she says to me. She was like, when you're ready, talk about it. And she goes, and I was like, nah, I'm not talking about it. And she's like, she goes, I know from talking to you, it's going to help you. And that's one of the first things I did. Was I went on my friend Lisa's podcast and I told my story, and I had pammed Lisa off many a time. Like, no, I'm all right. I'm not going to, I'm busy. I can't go on it. And I thought of every excuse under the sun until my nurse sat down with me and she's like, tell your story. And I did. And it was like a massive release, because I was like, that was actually, I felt like I was going to greet during the podcast, but I didn't. I was actually all right. But like, I was like, this is really good. And see, now I started feeling like I was able to talk more. And then I started feeling actually like a shift, that I was becoming more me. Hence, I did a podcast with my friend and I loved it. It was great. But when I wrote my article for Bowel Cancer UK, I said to him, luckily my friend's really respectful, and he just was like, no, do it. And I was like, I think I need to be Chris Ferry for a wee while. And that's what I done. And I started like sharing my stories and meeting people that my whole idea was meeting people that I found inspirational, and want to hear their stories to inspire others, to like make people sort of like share their story, or do or push themselves out their comfort zone. So no, aye mate, aye. You definitely know what you're talking about, Jack. Aye, you definitely know what you're talking about.
It's like I got the opportunity a couple of years ago to do probably the hardest talk that I've ever done in my life. It was a 60-second talk.
Oh.
Okay. Now it just so happened to be in front of 3,000 people, but that wasn't the hard part. Um, it was at this event called the Pendulum Summit, which is in Ireland. It's probably the biggest. It is the biggest sort of personal empowerment and business event. And so I did 60 seconds in the morning. Um, they do this thing for the delegate speakers, they call. So between all the big speakers, they put a few local boys up, and so I pitched myself for it, and I got an opportunity, and I did 60 seconds that morning, and Tony Robbins did 6 hours in the afternoon,
Whoa.
which was nuts. But in that morning, I spent weeks thinking of what can I say in 60 seconds, and I said three things. Three messages, 20 seconds each. The first thing I said is that everybody has their shit. It's just boxed in different ways. And I'll explain them a bit longer here. So as I go down the street, like my challenge is very obvious. Like I have 15% muscle function. I use my shoulders, my biceps, and my wrists to do everything.
Right, okay.
I'm rocking down the road in a wheelchair, and people can see that and say, okay, there's something that's a challenge he faces. What I can't see is that the girl across the street is struggling with anxiety and barely got out the door that morning. That someone that just walked past me has been diagnosed with cancer. That another person is struggling with their sexuality and trying to understand when is the right time to come out and how do I do it and who do I do it to. Another person is facing financial struggles, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And the thing is that when you recognize that at some point or other, and in different ways at different times, everybody is facing their challenge, it puts us all on a very level playing field in many ways. And we look on at people's lives and say, they've got nothing going on compared to me, or I would never deal with what that person has gone through.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that's the extent of their experience. We can learn from others, but that comparison to other people's stories solves a distance. So everybody on a level playing field when you understand that we all face our shit in different ways. The second thing that I learned was, and let me know, have I dropped out there?
Just a wee bit, but I've got you back, mate. I've got you back.
Yeah. The second thing that I talked about that day was the choices you make over time lead you either to surviving or thriving in your life. And so the extent to which you choose to say, I can or I can't, fight on or give up, say yes or no, is the extent to which you either thrive or just survive. And the thing is recognizing that you've got more choice in this than you might let on. Like in the early days, I could do absolutely nothing for myself. I couldn't scratch my nose. I literally couldn't breathe without the aid of a ventilator.
Wow.
And day in, day out for months and years, I had to become aware that I had choices. And the choices were to do the simplest of things, from like learning to pick up a spoon to how to brush my teeth, to then like do my hair, to learn to get dressed, to shower myself, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then it turned to bigger things. And this is a muscle that we practice every day. It's like the small choices we make really do compound over time. And you don't get it right all the time. I certainly don't anyway. But if I choose to say, yes, I can, and to keep on fighting 51% of the time, I'm winning.
Yeah.
I'm
I love
going
it.
in the right direction. And the third, and like that brings in, I have massive compassion because I've been there. I've been on those brutal days and weeks where like I literally couldn't make eye contact with people. because I just didn't want to let them see what I was going through. I thought that if I made eye contact, they would see even a bit of the pain that I was in. And that was like too much for me to bear. And so I get it. I get those really brutal places that people find themselves in. But from those places is where we rise, and that's where we get made. And the third thing that I learned, and it came from something really simple. My dad said to me one day when I was leaving the house, he said, I was going out to get in the car to go into town or something. And he said, impress yourself today, Jack. And I was bowed over because, you know, I thought about it, and each one of us has a completely unique set of skills, completely unique life experience, a complete unique way of being in the world. We do ourselves and the world a fundamental disservice when we compare ourselves to anybody else. And so this idea of impress yourself it just blew me away. And like, imagine if more nights in a week we could put our head down on the bed and said, you know what, I gave today a good shot.
No,
you know, like
great.
Like what is living a good life? It's showing up every day and giving it a good shot, you know. And we can have compassion for ourselves when we do that on more days than not. And we can be that little bit kinder to ourselves. So that 60-second talk was the hardest talk I ever gave in my life. But it's the 3 messages that I came up with are things that I include in most of the work I do, particularly when I'm giving talks now.
It's brilliant. It's like you say, it's nice and it makes you think. But like you said, like just that last bit there, like just go and impress yourself with others. That's it. You're bang on. It's really, really good. And 60 seconds. That's amazing. To fit that in 60 seconds. That is just brilliant. Like
it was a bit crisper than that.
It was just like blah, 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 blah. What did he say? What did he say? I'm sure it was positive. I'm sure it was really good.
we were releasing a documentary at that time as well, and I even managed to get a pitch in for the documentary at the end. So.
That is brilliant. I love that's what I love. I love doing that. That's 60 seconds. It's like when you hear people talk about is it the elevator, like the elevator pitch? Have you heard of that? You have to try and that's what it just reminded me of. Like, how do you pitch within that certain time? And I always think it's so impressive because I'm reading a book started, and it's like Talk Like TED. And it's about how do they break down TED Talks and how to talk like TED. And that's the thing I think is amazing. I mean, you obviously see people like Tony Robbins. I mean, somebody like that at that seminar, that's just amazing to be on the same stage as somebody like him as well.
Yeah, he is a huge person. Like, there's a photo. There's a photo of. I managed just to catch a photo beside him as he was leaving the stage, and his hand is about 2 times the size of my head. He actually has gigantism.
Oh, really?
He has like a hormonal defect in his brain, and people believe like it's part of the reason he has so much energy is that to do with that. But yeah, he is a presence, and like it's funny, like, because I don't know, Scottish people are quite similar, I think, but we have a healthy dose of skepticism for most things, and
it's so true, by the way.
And Tony Robbins rocked up in Ireland, and he kicks off, and it's literally like a rave, you know, and like the lights are going and people are up and jumping and the strobe lights and like people are high-fiving and hugging, and it was so funny because up the front you had like all the people that were like fully invested that were like, I'm not in the office, like fuck it, I'll give it a go. And then you have the people in the middle that are like, oh, this is weird, but I'm here, like I'm
I'll just
here.
go with it. I may as well.
Like they were going in for the hug, but they were kind of squirming, and then you have the guys down the back that aren't even sitting in their seats. They're literally like the guys at mass that lean up against the back wall, and they're just there, and you can see them nearly out of the corner of their mouth being like, who the fuck is this lad? Tony, who?
See, that's the way I'm like, that's like a couple of my friends had went to his thing and they were like, oh, it was amazing. I was dived about, it was high-fiving everybody. And I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. I said, even I was a bit like that. I was like, oh, I don't know. But I know if I was there, I'd be like, woo, there we go. This is great. It'd be a little lovely life.
Yeah.
Totally changed, man, when I go to it. No, it's like, he's big seminars, and what is it, in London he does them as well, isn't it?
Yeah, unleash the power within.
That's the one. That is the one. You walk in coals, isn't it? You walk in
Yeah.
I don't know.
I often wondered how he'd approach that with me. It's like,
Come on, Tony. What are you going to do?
Tony, any remedies for spinal cord injury? Just believe in yourself.
But cool, that's fine. Right. Cheers, Tony. Give me a high five. Come on, let's go. I know it's one of the things, mate. So, see, when you do that, like, what have you got planned then? Like, have you moved it? See, with your like seminars, you did that one. Have you got any more coming up? Have you got any more like, online seminars coming up?
Yeah. So, I took a little bit of time out during the summer because, it's been the COVID period has been full on. Similar to yourself, I pivoted my whole business online, and there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes on with that. And so I took about 4 weeks out. I'm really diligent about creating space for my own recovery, and so that was really important. So I'm ramping back up again now, and I'll be launching my Rise group again for September. So I'm in the planning stages for that, which is really exciting. And yeah, there's some exciting stuff to come. I'm in the process of engaging with people on a brand redesign and things like that. Which is, it's really important, I think, that the messages that are going out are congruent when so much of a clean, simple, effective messaging, when so much noise exists on the internet now, and people are spending so much of their time. And so that's something that I'm really focusing on. But the bulk of my work will be within the Rise group over the next couple of months. I'm going back actually to do a diploma in the College of Surgeons, and at the Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin. And that diploma is in positive psychology and positive health. So we're really looking at like how like psychology and lifestyle medicine integrate. So I'm really excited about that. And to be able to bring some of those learnings to my clients as well should be good fun. And you know what? I'm just excited about things. Things are really good at the moment. August is a strange month for me in that, and someone said it to me the other day. They said it's almost like you were born twice in August, because my birthday is at the beginning of August,
Right.
and the end of August marks the anniversary of the spinal cord injury. And
Right. How many
so
years is that, Jack? How many years is the spinal cord injury?
so on the 31st of August, it'll be 8 years,
Wow.
which is remarkable. Yeah. So I was 20 when that happened. And yeah, I just turned 20 when that happened. And it's that part of your life when you really think you're invincible. You literally think you have the world at your feet. I was really physically fit. I was like training and running and on the water all day every day, and I was loving life, you know, and sort of in a heartbeat that is, in some ways you think it's taken away, but really the way in which you interact with your life is completely challenged and changed,
Yeah.
and it really gives you chance for pause. So to understand, well, like how do I live well now, I suppose. And that was really interesting for me. And I think August is always a time of reflection for me, where I sort of hit pause and I say, like, can I be proud of how I'm showing up in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of go back to that moment where, like, I'm face down in the water and life becomes very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, what are the most important things? And it's like, okay, well, the things that are most important to me are my health, the relationships in my life, and doing meaningful work. And the work you do, no matter what it is, can be meaningful.
Uh-huh.
No matter what it is, it's the way that you approach it. And yeah, I really get deliberate about how I think about those things, and about creating space and energy to put towards those things that are most important, and everything else is just noise. Um, and periodically through the year, just like everybody, I get pulled and dragged off course. It's a
Mm-hmm.
noisy world, but like, I think a couple of times a year it's really important to create a bit of space to reflect and say, well, where am I, and how do I want to be doing this big game that we call life, huh?
You're completely right. I was talking to my wife about this today, and I was like, we need time out. We need to just time out, take away. Like you said, you took your 4 weeks. I'm like, I need time out soon. I need to get away and just zone down a wee bit and just like get my own headspace back and stuff like that. And but the thing is, but like you're saying, like everyone you're doing it is amazing. Even like I'm talking to you through Zoom. You know what I mean? And you've got this amazing. Like, I never used to use words, by the way, like this like, energy and all that. But like you've got this really like amazing energy. Like you've totally filled my cup up today. I'm like, this is great. I'm like coming out of here today going, guy's brilliant. I really like him. Do you know what I mean? But you've got like this infectious personality. You go, oh, you're an interesting guy. You're very positive. I really like it. And like, you're just the type of guy. I always describe as the type of guy I'd like to go and have a pint with. That is what I always say.
Well. Do you drink a Guinness?
Do you know what? Right. Do you know? I'll be honest with you. I've never had Guinness. I've never had Guinness.
Ah, well,
But I
well,
did
well.
swear to myself, if I go to Ireland, that's not have. Do you know? I've never been to Ireland. I went backpacking all around the world, and I never went to Ireland. I was supposed to go and see
Well,
my mate Ed in Dublin, but I never ever got there.
well, I've never been to Scotland either.
But mate, there
So
you go. How
we'll
can?
we'll we'll have to do, like, send exchange students.
I was going to say you could just come up to mine and crash at mine. I'm the one some random state of mind.
Huh? Um,
I'll take you to
no,
Glasgow then. I'll let you experience Glasgow. You'll love it.
Glasgow.
Glasgow is, I love Glasgow. I've been so many places in the world, and I get asked questions like, what is your favourite places in the world? And I always put Glasgow in there, and they're like, really? Is it not the stab capital of the world? And I'm like, it might be, but at the same point, it's an amazing city. Like, I much prefer Glasgow to Edinburgh. I'm saying that that's quite controversial because my cousins are all from Edinburgh, but it's all right.
Ooh.
Oh, where are you near? Are you near Dublin then? Is that your nearest place?
Yeah,
What's
so I'm just north of Dublin. So we're actually about 45 minutes from Dublin city centre, but we live out in the countryside, and it's, at the moment, we'd be considered in the commuter belt, but we live between two small villages, well, reasonably sized villages, or towns, and it's nice to have that just little bit of disconnect. You know, there's a lot of greenery around,
Mhm.
and you've got that little bit of space, which I really value. But we're close enough to the city and to town that when you want that bustle and you want to feel the rush of people around you and so on, well, not so much since COVID, but when you want to feel that buzz, it's only a short trip away, you know.
Well, this can lead us on to the questions then. This could lead us right into them. So this is good, right? So, I ask all my guests, right? It's called FERRI Unfiltered, right? And it's obviously, my plan was to make you a coffee. I'd make you a coffee. So, what type of coffee would I make you?
So you would make me an Americano with a medium roast, medium roast beans. And if I was really going all out, I would say a slow pour over would be good. But
Well,
I'll
you're a
be
pro.
I'll be kind to you and say I'll go with an Americano. None of this notions with your oat milk and and fairy lights on your, you know, give me
Yeah.
a straight shooting coffee any day.
See, you're a man after my own heart. That's what I ordered. I ordered that the other day at Starbucks, and the girl was like, "Really? Like just a coffee?" And I'm like, "Yes, just a coffee, an Americano." She's like, "Oh my god, this is the first one I've done today." And I'm like, "It's like 5 o'clock. What do you mean it's the first coffee you've made?" Right. So we've got our coffee there. That's fine. I can totally do that. Right. We're going into Dublin, and we're going to get a pizza then. So hopefully eat pizza. And if I had to get you pizza, what would I get you?
All right. I would probably go for a vegetarian.
Right.
Vegetarian pizza with. Do you want all the toppings?
Go for it. We may as well. We may as well.
So I would go with goat's cheese. I would go with caramelized onions, all of the peppers, and you know what? Just to mix it up and to be a bit out there, I'll go with pineapple on it as well. It's for a bit of refreshment.
Do you know why I'm laughing? Right, so every time I say this, right, and everybody slags me because I always say, "Who would put pineapple on a pizza?" Everybody a blinking head on and said pineapple on a pizza. I am going to get ribbed for this. I am going to get ribbed for this, chat. Right, here we go. You need to win me back now, right? So we've got 5 people now. You're allowed 5 people to have to dinner, right? Now they can be from past or present, so they can be from Albert Einstein, whoever you want. They can come back. They're not coming back as zombies though. They're coming back as them, right? So who would you have, past or present? 5 dinner guests.
Okay, so I'm looking at my bookshelf because I think that's quite telling.
Yeah.
My bookshelf is here beside me, and so I would have Simon Sinek.
Nice.
Okay, Simon Sinek would be first on my list, and Simon Sinek wrote "Start with Why" and "Leaders Eat Last" and "The Infinite Game," and he is a leader on leadership and I suppose business strategy, but he also really speaks to my heart on life strategy, I suppose. He's a cool guy and a phenomenal speaker. The second person I would have is Dr. Gabor Mate.
Oh.
Dr. Gabor Mate is really interesting story, actually. He was born in Hungary during he was born in Hungary during World War II, and his mother had to give him to the neighbors. They were Jewish, and had to give him to the neighbors for the first year of his life. And that was kind of the first traumatic experience that he had in his life, and eventually moved to Canada, became a family physician, went on to work as a general practitioner in the public domain, and then he worked with end of life care and addicts. But he was an addict himself through much of his life, whether it was substance abuse or shopping addictions and so on. And he has written some of the most remarkable books on trauma and trauma and the way in which it influences our lives and the ways that it shows up in our lives. And he's fascinating. I think everybody experiences trauma in their lives, and if we don't go back and work on peeling back the layers on some of that stuff, it is the the weight that pulls us down or holds us back, or it's the piece that feeds into the limiting beliefs about all the things that we can't do or that we're not good enough for. It's the piece that feeds that negative inner chatter. And so I believe that that is so important for us to look at. So he's really good on trauma, and so is Bessel van der Kolk, and he wrote The Body Keeps the Score, which is all about trauma as well. Two amazing books.
I'm totally going to go and buy them after this, by the way. I'm not going to
lie. The next person that I would invite is Tom Crane.
Right.
So have you heard of a book called An Unsung Hero?
I have, but I don't know what it's about or anything like that.
So Tom Crane was one of the first Arctic explorers. And he went to the Arctic back when, like, they literally had like a woolly jumper and a hat sort of a situation. And he brought a ship of men, and they got locked in by the ice. And this is where the phrase burn the boat comes from, because they basically had to abandon their boat. And it's one of the examples of burning your boats. So they had to abandon the boat and go on foot across the Arctic. And it's a remarkable story of exploration, of resilience, of tenacity, of just hard men doing remarkable work. And they came, many of them came back. They were discovered and they came back, and it's just a very cool story.
Wow.
So I'd love to pick his brains. I have two more guests that I can have. I would have Brené Brown. Brené Brown is a sociologist from Texas, and she has written 5 best-selling books, New York Times bestsellers. But she researches courage, she researches shame, and she has written a number of books called Daring Greatly, Rising Strong. I can't see any of the others there, but she has an amazing talk called The Power of Vulnerability. It's right. A TED talk. She has a she has a Netflix special, like, coupled with just doing really interesting research. She is hilarious and she humanizes everything. So she's possibly the most relatable researcher that you will ever meet in your life. She's really, really fun. I have so many here. The last is going to be a hard call.
I'm so intrigued with this. I feel like I should give you 6. I feel like I should give you 6 now because I want to know more. I'm sitting here going, go and tell us another one. Go on.
You know, I'd love to have my 2 granddads. I got to know my grannies quite well. I got a lot of time with my grannies, and they were remarkable people. But I'd love to bring my 2 granddads to learn more about their lives. One of them was had 2/3 of his stomach removed, and he was a vet and was a real. He had 12 kids, big family, very much committed to the outdoors and to nature. And just very in touch with nature as a vet. And my other granddad he worked in banks, but he put himself through night school until he was 36. Worked during the day and studied at night, and he played international soccer for Ireland.
Wow.
And was, yes, again, a really interesting guy. And he brought the first computer to a bank in Ireland. So really would love to hear more of his story because,
Definitely.
yeah, I was young. I was young when he passed away. But like other people that I would love to get to meet is um, Edith Edgar or Viktor Frankl. These are two people that lived through Auschwitz and the concentration camps and the things that they have to teach us. I would love to meet Tim Ferriss as like just a get shit done life strategist. I think he's super cool. I'm looking at my list here. There's so many people from the world of health that I would love to interview. I would love to interview Napoleon Hill because or to have dinner with him because he wrote the seminal works like Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
is like the seminal work of personal development. Back in the day, nobody really knows that about 7 years later, his life was in tatters after he wrote that. He wrote the playbook to become like successful, quote unquote, whatever way you define that. And 7 years later, his life was like in tatters. And he wrote another book, which wasn't published for another 74 years because it challenged so many elements that were foundations of society. And it was called Conversations with the Devil. And it's arguable whether he was having a psychotic break when he wrote that. And it is a remarkable book where he basically interviews the devil, and the devil has to give all his secrets away about how he controls people. And this is like through the church and education, and it's a perspective altering book, to say the least. The list goes on and on and on.
Oh
Seth
no!
Godin.
There's another good one. God, you've
Yeah.
got some gems here. You've basically covered my next topic. My next topic was going to be what books would you recommend, but you've recommended loads there, which is what's great. That's what I love asking my guests is like what books, because you get so many ones that you're like, really, oh, what's that one? And then it's great, like, because it just allows people to try different things, learn different things, listen, be it audio or actually just reading a book. They just let them see and hear different things. But your dinner party sounds amazing. Proper, apart from the pineapple on your pizza, you ruined that.
Well, that's what really sets it alight, huh?
I'm not going to lie, I'd still come. I'd stomach it. I'd go for it. I would just eat it anyway. You're giving me a black coffee. I'm all right with that. I'll just have a black coffee.
I'd introduce you to everybody as look, you might have all come back from the dead, but I've got a real life fairy here.
Who doesn't like pineapple? No, I love pineapple. I do. I would eat it. I'd eat it in pizza. I would. I'm not going to lie. I would eat it. It's been people over the Hawaiians. I'm like, why are you doing that? There's so many great options. Why are you doing that? Jack, thank you so much, by the way, for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your knowledge, your positive energy, and just being a cracking guy. I proper loved it. I've loved it, mate. It's been great. And I look forward to when you come to Glasgow. Great. I can't wait to take you out the night out in Glasgow.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, mate, we're going to love it. We're going to love it. It's going to be great. See, when COVID's over, we can go to all the pubs. You're going to love it. And then I'm going to come to Ireland, and I'm not going to touch any Guinness until I come to see you. That's it. I'm holding you to that.
We call them pints of cream.
Pints of, is that what you call it?
That's what me and my friends call it. A nice creamy pint of Guinness.
I'm going to get a bash. I'll get a bash. I don't know. I'll blow my arse. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a very good drinker.
I drink very little myself. Yeah, I've had a couple of years ago. So like any 20-year-old at the time I had my injury, like I was partying plenty, and you know that moment when you go into the bathroom and you see yourself and you're like, oh God, you know that moment where you're
yes.
like, if I have one more, like this is going to descend into carnage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the trouble was, like, after I came back after having the spinal injury, the mirrors were too high up, and so I just didn't have that moment anymore. And I fell out of my wheelchair too many times on dance floors and had silly things happen. And I also realized that it had become it hadn't become, but it could have become a problem for me, because I was drinking more when I went out to hide the fact that I was really struggling with my body image post spinal injury. And so when I did my intern year as a pharmacist, I just didn't have the time to be hungover, and I went off booze for nearly a full year, and it reset my preference entirely. And now I love waking up fresh, and so it is rare that you'll find me drinking, and when I do, it's only a few. But that hasn't stopped me from venturing for a few creamy pints, so we'll do that.
Let's do that then, mate. Let's do that. I'm looking forward to that. Well, thank you so much, mate, and I hope this has been brilliant. I can't wait to get this out. I'm going to now probably play your video back, take a list of your books and go on Amazon. But no, thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely night, and thank you for coming on FERRI Unfiltered.
Oh, I am delighted. Thank you so much. And I might just finish with one quick quote, if that's all right.
Go for it.
I wrote this at a time that I was really at a crossroads in my life, and I sat down with my journal, and this is what I wrote. So I said, there is no right or wrong path, just a series of events that gives us a flavor of either what it is that sets our heart alight or dampens our soul. What I do know to be true is that in a life that is more disillusioned, disconnected, and full of people wearing masks than ever before, the bravest thing that any person can possibly do, despite the challenges they may face, is to bring their authentic selves to the world, and that is when the magic will happen. I know that so many people out there are feeling disillusioned, disconnected, and are wearing masks. They're not feeling themselves. Just never forget you've got magic within you, and be brave because you matter. There you have it.
That was you could, just wish you just spent out the mic and just that would be you. That was brilliant. I love that. I'm totally using that as a clip. That's if they don't listen to the podcast for that day, they don't know what they're missing out. I mean, no, brilliant. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much, mate. Well, thanking you. I hope you have a lovely night, and I'm off to get this edited. I'll probably watch it again. I'm so excited.
Delighted. Well, I hope you're happy with it.
Thank you, Jack.
Stay well, man.
Thank you.